Time for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have no public comments on this evening. I will entertain, am I right, Susan? I will entertain a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda.
Mr. Chairman, move that the agenda be approved as presented.
Second. It's been moved and properly second that the agenda would be approved as written. You've heard question, but any questions? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers have the same signs. The approval of our minutes for 10/12/2010.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the minutes from October the 12th, 2010 be approved as presented.
Need a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that our minutes would be approved. You've heard the motion. Ready for the question? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers have the same sign. Ms. Tammy Howland. Well, Lieutenant?
No, it is.
It is Ms. Tammy Howland.
Yes, sir.
Sir, we have with us tonight Jack Walker from Dixon Hughes to present our audit report as of June 30th.
Good evening. I'm going to start on page 14, and while you turn there in your booklet, I'll just mention that this is about a 57-page document. We certainly don't have the time to go through all the data this year, and I'll just give a few little highlights. If you have any questions, please ask me, and I'll do my best to answer them. The first and important page is page number 1 that has the audit opinion, which was unqualified again this year. Following that, there's a summary called the MD&A or management section that gives a lot of detail, summarized detail about the financial affairs of the board. And then following that are a couple of exhibits that are done on a full accrual basis of the county, like a business would. You have all the governmental activity. That means all the funds that are non-school food service or business type are in one column, and then business type activities are in the other. And I won't take time to go into those. And then following that are the exhibits that are on the modified accrual basis, which is the way you budget. And starting on looking at page, I'm sorry, I don't know what page page 13 is what I want to look at. Page 13, exhibit 4. This is a summarized statement of the revenues and expenditures of these various funds. And you see the title across the top lists the major funds, and they're the general, or as we know, incur expense fund, and you got your state's public school funds, federal grants, a new fund, restricted revenues. Some of the money that came in for special purposes was moved out of the general and put into a separate fund this year, and then you have your capital outlay fund in the individual schools. And if you look down at the item that's up from the bottoms, fourth dollar amount up, you'll see net change in fund balance, and that line running across there shows the results for the year comparing the expenditures to the revenues, and as you can see there, those are all positive numbers. So the results for all of those funds were positive this year. If you back up one page, this is the balance sheet, which shows the assets, liabilities, and fund balances of all those funds that we just mentioned. And you can see going across there, the fund balance is broken down into several pieces, restricted by state statute, reserved for inventory, and then amount designated to balance next year's budget, and so forth. Going on over to page 18, I think we probably talked a little bit about the school food service last year. That had been I think an area of concern. It's an area of concern for most boards. The school food services, in a lot of cases, are losing money. and the sales continue to decrease. And in looking at Exhibit 8 on page 18, the sales there are showing $1,064,000. That was $1,116,000 last year, so the sales do continue to decrease. However, the expenses there, which showed the total operating expenses $4,290,000, that number last year was $4,325,000 when you disregard indirect cost. There were no indirect costs paid this year because they were not allowed to do that. And last year there was. When you take that out, you compare it, decrease from 4,325 to 4,290. So the non-operating revenues, the federal reimbursements, there was a nice increase in that number. From last year was $2,740,000, and this year is $2,953,000, and the commodities went up from 287 to 308. Bottom line, you see the number of income before contributions and transfers, 48,581. That number last year was $155,000 loss. So that's a nice improvement. Apparently there were efforts made, costs were cut, and that's a good result for the year. There's capital contributions there. That represents equipment that was purchased in other funds, and the transfers from other funds is monies that came out of the, I believe, the state public school fund to cover salaries. So the net change there was actually an increase in net assets of $125,000. Again, it was a good year for the food service compared to the previous year. There's lots of pages of notes that follow that, and then, as you know, the audit is both a financial and a compliance audit, and the compliance section begins on page 46, and there are three opinions that we're required to give to you. The first is an opinion on internal control over financial reporting and compliance with laws, regulations, contracts, grants, that sort of thing. And there were no findings at all this year. And the second letter is a report on the major federal programs, the compliance with those regulations and grant applications, and the internal control over that compliance. And again, there were no findings. And the last opinion letter is a report on the major state programs. Again, compliance and internal control, and again, there were no findings. And I think that staff did a very good job. There was a lot of new money. There was our money that, this federal grant money that came through, and they complied with all the rules and regulations there this year with that money. So they're to be commended for having a really good year, and the books were well kept. We did not have a management letter this year. We do have a separate letter that you should have received. That's a required communication that we have to do now, and if we have any problems with management, if we have to consult with someone else outside our firm, if we have uncorrected or large corrected misstatements, we are required to reveal that to you in this letter, and I'm happy to say there were none of those items. This is just the standard letter that mentions things, but there were no things that needed to be brought to your attention this year. And that's my comments this year.
Any questions from anybody from the board? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for allowing us to work with you again this year.
We appreciate it. Thank you. And again, want to commend our finance department for the hard work that you do. And we know that we have probably one of the best in the state. And we thank you, Tammy, for all that you do. We also have with us on tonight, representing Department of Defense, pretty much Fort Bragg, Miss Emily Grimes. We're glad to have you in the Sanford Herald, Alexia, and Miss Margaret Murchison from our radio station. We're glad to have you and all of you that are here on this evening. At this time, we'll hear from Dr. Jeff Moss with our superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And let me echo the comments of the board and the chair that the audit, it's nice to have a boring audit, and this might be a boring audit to some, but it's an excellent audit in the eyes of an accountant where there are no questionable costs and an unqualified opinion, which is what you strive for each and every year. Let me call on Jim Atkinson, Assistant Superintendent for Auxiliary Services, and he'll recognize our Clean School Award winner.
Thanks, sir. Good evening. It's a pleasure and honor to be able to do something good, always. And this month's winner is Greenwood Elementary School, and we want to bring them up now to congratulate them and applaud them on their hard work and what they've done. They scored a 98 this month on the Clean School Award. And I will say on the side note that the first month when I went on my little visits after Mr. Pittman visited, they wanted to know how many people the depot had on their staff. So I do remember that conversation correctly. They were their school was close. They improved this month, and we had 6 schools that did well in the 90s. So we're very appreciative of the competition. It's a friendly competition, but I do want to thank Ms. Hazlett and her staff, and have her at this time, along with her assistant principal, to congratulate them and present them to you.
And Mr. Atkinson, can you give the board an idea of folks that scored above 9?
We had 6 schools, as I mentioned, that everybody went up except for 1 school. So that was good news. But we had 6 schools that went up to the 90s. Broadway, of course, I don't want to say of course, Deep River, Floyd Knight, of course, Greenwood, Sandley Middle School, Tramway Elementary, and believe it or not, Warren Williams. So we're proud of those schools for scoring in the 90s. We only had 4 schools that scored the 80s, which were the majority of our schools last month. So again, the competition and the friendly ribbon one another, let them know that they could do better, and they did do better, and we appreciate all the hard work and effort that they put forth, and the schools are better off for it. So we certainly do appreciate Ms. Hazlett, Mr. Trout, and the staff.
Thank you very much.
And you get to take that with you for this next month?
Yay. I just want to say how proud I am of my staff. We took on quite a renovation project this summer, and we were in quite a mess, and we were down 1 person. So my ladies were all alone until Mr. Shannon joined us in September. So they have just done a phenomenal job to come from sheetrock dust everywhere to the Clean School Award in such a short time, and I greatly appreciate it.
And if we may get a picture of y'all.
I'd like to say one more thing about Ms. Hazlett. The day after the award was announced, because again, I was making my rounds going to the school, she had been talking to him. And she said, we will win this award. So there you are.
Thank you so much.
I don't mind standing around so I can take your picture. Ready? Just one more.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Mr. Chairman, the only other item I'll mention is each of you have your seat the agenda for the board retreat for November 18th and 19th.
Thank you, sir.
If you see any changes or additions that need to be made, please contact Susan.
We want to, Dr. Smith, that's $10. But again, congratulations to Greenwood, and it sounds like Dr. Atkinson is going to get harder and harder the team goes around to try to find those that are deserving, and that's what we want. So it's good. Thank you, sir. Committee reports. And we will start out with curriculum and instruction. Dr. Linda Smith.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Mr. Chairman, the middle school C&I committee met October the 26th at Eastleigh Middle School, and you're going to find that agenda in your packet, so I'm hoping that you've had a chance to look at the agenda and what we covered at that meeting. And then today, the elementary C&I met at the central office in the assembly room. And one conversation dealt with the purchase of laptops for all elementary schools with the non-recurring state funds. And I think also Mr. Bill Tatum will also be addressing that as well. Okay. And then you will also find in your packet tonight the elementary C&I approved the Warren Williams local option goals, and you will also find the local option goals in your packet. We heard a lot of things today. One thing about the Mr. Bryant reported on the staff development for tutors on one-to-one laptops, and he talked about the very positive response that was given, responses from the group about the one-to-one laptops. Our next middle school meeting will be January the 5th, and that will be at Sandley Middle School. And then the elementary C&I will meet January the 14th at Greenwood Elementary School, over there where we have this clean school board. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Facilities and Technology, Mr. John Minotti.
Mr. Chairman, the Facilities Technology Committee met on October the 26th. We had several items on our agenda, one of which is before you in the consent agenda concerning Eastleigh Middle School canopy bid. There had to be a revision to the application for the lottery funds. The original application was for $60,000. The bids came in at $64,134. So there had to be another application submitted for $4,134. Anyway, that's before us on the consent agenda. Lee County High School, the contractor attended the meeting and discussed a change order request for some additional cabling for the intercom system in the amount of $7,816.31, and also some additional electrical work in order to get the intercom system working prior to the start of school for another $14,000. And there's ongoing discussion. The committee has not reached a decision on whether we would approve this change order. Jimmy Hyde is going to be attending our next meeting on the 30th, and after consulting with Mr. Hyde and Dr. Moss and Mr. Pittman, we'll make a decision there. Also, during the meeting, Andy Miles gave an update of the progress, and everything is progressing well. Jerry Pittman is pleased so far with the progress there, and also we had an update on a new parking lot installation at J.R. Ingram Elementary School, and we were presented with some test reports of the work that was done there, and they passed. And I don't know if any of you have been out to see it, but I've been out, and it's a nice little additional parking spaces out there at J.R. Ingram. And that concluded our meeting.
Thank you, sir. And Finance and Personnel, Mr. Bill Tatum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance Committee met November the 4th. The outline of of that meeting has been provided to you. I will add to what Dr. Smith mentioned, that the Finance Committee approved, and it's in tonight's consent agenda, the use of non-recurring funds as they become available to for the superintendent to use those funds in order to place a laptop in each of the remaining students' hands that currently are not assigned a computer. That will culminate in all students having a laptop, and I think that this board and this Dr. Moss's leadership and this community should be proud to know that we're on the cutting edge of technology. It wasn't many years ago that we may have been one of the weaker districts in the state, and I think now we're certainly one of the strongest. Our next scheduled finance meeting is January 27th. Unless something occurs between now and then, we will meet. May need require a call meeting. We will be giving for the board in December the budget calendar that will be provided in December. It's that time of year again, and it's going to be quite a interesting spring to develop our budget this year. That completes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. And when you said all students, that's all students grade 3 through 12, am I correct?
K through 12. Mm-hmm. This will complete.
3 to 3.
I mean 3 through 12. I'm sorry. Yeah, 3 through 12. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Ms. Murchison had to be, we're like at church now, we're getting ready to have collection. All right.
No collection.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tatum. Dr. Smith, policy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Policy Committee met on Tuesday, October the 19th. The only thing we have to present tonight are the regulation changes to Policy 3470 that are in your FYI packet. Since these are just changes to the regulations that will govern the operation of Warren Williams School, it does not require board approval. Next meeting will be on Monday, November 22nd at 3:15.
Thank you, sir. And the Ad Hoc Committee on Communications, Mr. Cameron Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We last met on Monday, November 1st. It was a brief meeting. We still need to compile some data. We got over a 50% response on our surveys, which I thought was a good response.
That feels good.
We had 5,200, over 5,200 turn back in. So we've got a lot of comments on the back of those, and we're putting all that together, and we're going to email it all out to our committee members, and they'll have all the data. And we've asked that our committee members start emailing, sharing recommendations as soon as they've read all the material. And our final meeting will be on December 13th, 5:30.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
We moved and properly second that the consent agenda would be approved as submitted. You've heard the motion. Are there any questions? I do want to ask a question on the contributions and donations. As I've looked at that since my time being on the board, it looks as if that is those schools that are receiving those contributions or donations, they have already received them. Is there any board action needed on that, or would that be it for our information?
Mr. Chairman, if I might, the policy committee is looking at that policy as we speak.
Thanks, sir.
And the intent at the moment is to put a minimum amount that would need to be approved by the superintendent. So that we wouldn't have to come to board attention, the superintendent could approve those without our approval.
Thanks, sir. All right. Any other questions? All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, you have the same sign, ayes have it. There is no unfinished business. There is no new business. Dr. Smith,
I move that the Lee County Board of Education go into closed session for the purpose of discussing information that is privileged, confidential, or not a public record under North Carolina General Statute, Section 143, 318, 11A1.
heard that motion.
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Now in closed session. You're welcome. Thank you. We're now back in open session. Mr. Bernardi, you know,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that the Lee County Board of Education approve the Human Resources Report as presented.
Second.
moved and properly second that we would approve the human resource report as given. You've heard the motion. Ready for the question? All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Those that have the same sign. Mr. Tatum?
Mr. Chair, before I make my motion, I would like to just say that in anticipation of next week's board retreat, Dr. Lynn Smith and I traveled to Cary on Monday of yesterday and went to the movie Waiting for Superman.
We didn't hold hands.
And we, in fact, we didn't even sit beside each other. But the fact of the matter is, it was very profound and revealing. I hope that everyone will, if not able to attend the movie, read the book that's been given to us. I think it's going to be a good discussion at the board retreat. I will say in closing that the Galaxy Theater in Cary, the last evening that it's scheduled is Thursday, November 11th. With that being said, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We now stand adjourned.